welcome to 3D Movie Cinema, the only show that's 3 dimensions away from Scream 6 meeting Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan, and having a giant epic crossover of Ghostface versus Jason. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Scream 6, released in 2023. Scream 6 is a sequel to Scream 1 through 5. This time around this time takes place in New York City, which is a new location since most of the Scream movies took place in Woodsboro, California, or Los Angeles in some cases. This movie around is once again directed by the guys who made Scream 5, Radio Silent, Matt Olipian and Tyler Gillett. And it is written once again by James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick, and it stars Marissa Barrera, Jenny Ortega, Mason Gooding, Jack Champion, Dermot Mulroney, and Hayden Panettiere, as well as Courtney Cox. I really, really like the Scream movies. If you don't know, I'm a huge Scream fan. I love Scream 1. Scream 1 is one of my favorite horror films. It's in my top 5 films of all time. I love Scream 1. That's one of my favorite movies. So anytime there's a Scream movie, I'm always first to go see it. I love Scream 2. Scream 1 and 2 are two perfect movies to me. Like, Scream 2 is just such a good movie. Like, when I was rewatching all the Scream movies, I was just like, had a smile on my face when I was watching Scream 1, then watched Scream 2. Then I got Scream 3, and then the smile turned into an angry frown. And so, yeah, I love Scream 1 and 2. I do not like Scream 3. I think Scream 4 is okay. I don't hate it. This movie, like Scream 5, okay, I did not really hate Scream 5, although there are some things I dislike about Scream 5. I still think it's an enjoyable film. I just had some issues with it. This movie around, I was expecting to hate this movie because I had some issues with Scream 5. I was actually, like, kind of scared because, once again, Wes Craven, who passed away in 2014 or 2015, is no longer with us, and so he's not directing it. Radio Silence directed this one, the last movie. They're directing this one again. And the fact that they were fast-tracked this movie, because the last one came out last year. This one came out this year, which means it was shot last year, so that kind of had me scared. I was really scared, and I was like, look, what's going to happen? So, of course, I went into this thinking, oh, this is going to be a disaster, or this is going to be one of the worst Scream films out there. It's going to be worse than Scream 3. And I was shocked to learn that this is actually a pretty good film. Like, I actually really enjoyed this movie. Like, I saw two movies, this past week, Shazam 2 and this, and I actually enjoyed this more than Shazam 2. I mean, I really enjoyed, both movies are enjoyable, but I really like Scream 6. Like, I actually really enjoyed Scream 6. And so, like, when I went to see this movie, I had low expectations because, one, Neve Campbell's not in it, and two, it takes place in New York City, and I feel like that was going to be the more gimmick of the movie, was New York City, and rather than telling an interesting and fun story. To my surprise, this movie's actually really good. Like, I actually really enjoyed Scream 6. I was not expecting to, and in fact, there wasn't even the big twist. Didn't even really upset me. I was actually, because I enjoyed the rest of the movies just as much. There's a lot of things I like in this movie. I mean, the one thing is I actually like that they fixed an issue I had with the last movie was there's not a great chase sequence. Like, there usually was in the first 4 movies a great chase sequence. There was not one in this 5. And I just felt like this one they kind of fixed that and had a great chase sequence, and I really enjoyed that. I am gonna go into some spoilers since the movie has already came out. But if you haven't seen it yet, I am going to give this movie a solid B+, or an A-. I would say A- because a B+, I feel like I did enjoy it more than Shazam when I give Shazam an A-. I'd probably say an A- then, so that's great. But I did enjoy this movie, so here it is, spoilers. So if you haven't seen it already, this is your time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I really like this movie, though. New York, the opening, I really enjoyed this movie. I really like the fact that this movie takes place a year later in New York City, and it kind of has, like, Jenny Ortega is kind of like the Neve Campbell role now, where she is kind of like, in this process of, like, she's trying to move on with her life, like, kind of like Sydney in Scream 2, while you have Melissa Barrera, who is basically traumatized by the events of the last movie. And she just can't move forward. It's almost like two versions of, say, it's kind of like Scream 3 and Scream 2 Sydney in one. And I kind of like that aspect of it a lot. I thought both their performances were fantastic in this movie. They really sold me on this movie of, like, what a victim looks like and what a victim is trying to move on looks like. And I really like that we get to see both sides of that coin rather than it just being on one-sided or two-sided of the same coin. I really like that aspect of it. And I also like the New York New York really is a character of its own in this movie, and I really enjoyed that. I feel like I was worried it was just going to be like, oh, it's New York just for a gimmick, but it actually does have something to do in this movie, and I actually really like that aspect of it. It actually does feel like it actually is something besides just a character, like in like Jason Takes Manhattan. I also like the opening kill reveal. Like to me, I actually thought that was gonna stick because at the opening is revealed that Flash from the Spider-Man movies is the killer, and it turns out you think, oh, he's gonna be the killer. They're gonna keep the well, we know the killer the whole time is and see it from our perspective, and then it turns out they just kill him in like the first 10 minutes. It's almost like the Scream 4 thing, which I thought I was gonna hate it, but I didn't. I thought it was gonna be like a movie within a movie, but it wasn't, and I actually liked what they did. To me, that made more sense than the Scream 4 opening or kill. And I also really like, the train scene where, like, you don't know there's a bunch of people in Ghostface costumes. I actually really thought, like, oh my god, is any one of these true Ghostface? And I'm like, there's no way, because Ghostface is wearing a cruddy mask. And I also really like the fact that they had Ghostface with a newer mask that's not just the same old Scream mask, that it's actually a rusty mask, and that it is the killer. It's wearing killers from the old movies using their mask as like a symbol. It's almost symbolizing the trilogy. It almost feels like it's coming full circle, and I really like that aspect of the movie. That each kill, they're gonna drop a mask from previous crime movies. I'm like, that to me made me really happy, and I really enjoyed that. I also, the train sequence was brilliant, where she thinks this one guy's the killer who actually is the killer, but then you see someone in a Ghostface costume just go move, and I actually really thought that was clever and unique, and I was like, to me, finally, when she gets stabbed, I'm like, oh, I was not expecting. I was thinking this is going to be a fake out, but it wasn't, and I really enjoyed that. I actually thought that was really incredible. I also really, Mindy makes is also really great in this movie, like to where she gets a lot of it right, and I'm like, and then she goes, shit, I got it wrong when she got stabbed, and I just thought that was clever, and she was really fun, and when she was talking about requels and sequels, and I just thought that was like, oh, this is so cool, and she actually, I'm glad that they kept her around, and also her twin brother Mason Gooding, I thought he was great in this movie as well. I like that he kind of plays almost like the Doofy role, Dewey, sorry, not Doofy, a scary movie, Dewey role. And this is kind of like the protective guy and I like that he doesn't get killed either. It kind of makes it where, okay, good. So we can have him back for Scream 7. And I also really like Jenny Ortega again. Like, I thought she was great in this role as well. I already said that. And also the boyfriend, played by Josh Segarra, who is Melissa Barretta's boyfriend, who's the hot boy next door. I thought he was great in the movie, to where like you kind of have some idea, is he the killer? And I'm like, they're not going to do that, are they? And I'm like, they better not make him the killer, because I'm like, it's getting cliche. It's either he's the killer or he dies. And I'm glad that they didn't make him the killer or him die, because that to me made me like, okay, he can return for Scream 7. And I actually really liked him as an actor. I like him in the Arrow, when he did Arrow, the season of Arrow. I also liked him in She-Hulk, even though I thought She-Hulk was an abomination against humanity. I actually thought he was great in this movie as well, especially when he's on the train with them. And then there's a guy in a Ghostface costume who approaches, and he just gets in his face like, do something, like, and I like that the Ghostface just gets off, because, like, which is not really Ghostface, just someone wearing a Ghostface costume, which I also think is kind of weird. You would think that, because, like, with Jeffrey Dahmer, when the show Dahmer came out and everybody's wanting to buy the costumes, you would think that a lot of people would be like, yeah, we're gonna they ban sales on eBay and stuff, that way people can't dress like Jeffrey Dahmer. You would think that because Scream is based on true stories within the movie, you would think that they would ban Ghostface costumes so that way people can't dress up like the killer, because this really happened in Woodsboro. I'm just saying, you would think that, but instead everybody's like, even the people on TV, which make me laugh, are like, I'm getting me a costume too! And I'm just like, are you serious, bro? People died! And just like, and I also really like Kirby, like how they brought her back, how she's an FBI agent. And I like how that she was just trying to investigate the killer. I thought she was brilliant about that. And I like that she didn't die either. Like, it just feels like she got stabbed again, and then she was like, okay. At first I was going to get angry when they were like, oh, Kirby got discharged from the FBI, which they never really disclosed, did she or didn't she? But I kind of feel like that was a lie that the other cop just said, just so he can trap his children in there to kill them. I also thought that, that was really great. And I also thought the ladder scene, while they're all trying to go across the scene, which also, that ladder scene reminds me of Rear View Window, when you see, like, when he's across. That, to me, is a homage to that movie. And I also like the ladder scene where they're trying to come across, and then the killer just shows up, and then he just throws the ladder down and kills that one woman. I was like, damn, that's a great kill. I thought that was pretty great, too. And I also like that, like, I had the same thought. All these people are here, so none of them are the killer. But then when one guy shows up, like Jack, when the guy from Avatar shows up, they're like, "Oh, you're the killer because you weren't there." He's like, "I was at study hall," even though he really is the killer, and it was him doing it. I just thought that was clever that they did it that way. And I also like the more gruesome kills. Like they go really gruesome in this movie. I like even the shotgun, Ghostface with the shotgun. I thought was clever. I also really like that, like the ladder scene kill. I also just like that, like it gets more gruesome. Like someone gets shot in the head, stabbed in the face, and I'm just like, oh, this is a great kills in this movie. I really enjoyed the gruesome kills. I also, thought there's a great music video tie-in as well. This has a great soundtrack, by the way. There's a lot of great soundtrack that I was looking up after the movie. I also like the Jimmy Lovato song "Still Alive," or is it "Still Screaming," or is it "Still Alive"? I think it's "Still Alive." I thought that I listened to it a couple times. It's such a great song. You should listen to it. It's on YouTube. I just thought also it was a great soundtrack. I love that they played Red Right Hand twice in this movie. It almost feels like they're making up for when Scream 4 avoided the using the song. There were some things I disliked about the movie. Like, I did not obviously like that there was no Sydney. Like, even though she was mentioned in the movie, there was no Sydney, and I hated that because I feel like they should have paid Neve Campbell. She would have done it if they would have paid her, and it felt kind of bad because she could have seen this. It would have been great for her to be in the scene where she's seeing all these Ghostface costumes and seeing all this past trauma. But I do hate the fact that she's not in the scene, but I hope she'll be back for Scream 7. And I wish she at least had a camp. It would have been funny if at the end, when after it's over, instead of Mindy Minx running, if she would have just ran and says, "I'm here, let's kill some Ghostface." That would have made me chuckle, but I mean, it's fine, it's fine. I also did not like the three killers. To me, it almost felt like, all right, well, we can't figure out all these plot holes, so we'll just add three killers to fix plot holes. Because there's scenes where I'm like, okay, so how is Ghostface in the train? Because nobody knew that they were going to travel in train. I mean, it's possible that the brother could have told the sister. And also, no FBI agent would have felt the sister's pulse and said, "Yeah, she's dead." Instead, the guy's like, "Oh, my daughter's dead," when really she wasn't dead. I mean, seriously, that just to me kind of. And he said, I understand. He said, "Well, I put a dead body in her place," but like nobody could have done dental records saying this is not her. I'm just saying. And also, like, there's another scene where like, because there's only one way in and one way out, how would the killer be able to get into the movie theater since it's a one way? At what even Kirby has said, it's a one way. It's almost like a death trap in here. And to me, that didn't make sense to me. But that's just me. But I also did not like the fact that it was a remake of Scream 2. Like, for instance, if you noticed that, like in Scream 1, the boyfriend was the killer, then the mom and a psycho person that was a psycho who was a fan of the stab movies is the killer in Scream 2. Well, in this one, it's the dad. Since the boyfriend was the killer in Scream 5, the dad is the killer in Scream 2 because he was mad that his son died. I'm just like, this is the exact same shit that they did in Scream 1 and Scream 2. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just do that? Why are you trying to remake Scream 2? I mean, Scream 2 is a great film, and maybe that's why I like the movie much more, because it's a remake of Scream 2, a good Scream movie. I'm just saying that kind of irked me, and I was like, all right, I wish you would make actual sequels rather than trying to remake. But I understand Hollywood does not remake. Hollywood does not remake. They just say make sequels and say they're not remakes. But that's an irk to mine, and that's Hollywood in general. I also didn't like Gail being a bitch again. To me, I feel like Gail. I like Gail as a character, and I feel like she kind of redeemed herself, like in Scream, 3 and Scream 4. Even in Scream 5, it felt like for her being a bitch, that kind of irked me, because like, okay, she's going to write a book again. But I did like the fact that they say that Gail doesn't have anybody but Ghostface. That's all she has is Ghostface, because she really never has anything. I did like that, and I also liked that Ghostface finally calls her, because he never really calls her, and I thought that was really great as well. But I did like when she got punched by Jenny Ortega. That to me made me laugh. I'm like that. I really, and also like they brought back Dewey's theme, the broken arrow theme. I love that they brought it back. Also, Ghostface appearing in weird scenes. Also, I did not like that as well. Yeah, and to me, that's really what was my biggest irk, was that him just appearing in the theater when it's like, if Kurt would have been killed, that would have made sense. But the fact is that he was able. But I guess the cop kind of. I'm sure Kirby probably gave the cop the keys or something, and he probably snuck his kids in. But at the same time, I'm like, where the cop is with them, so is Jack Champion. He's with them, so, and obviously the daughter does most of the heavy lifting when they fake her death. But I still think that maybe, I was like, maybe, it just doesn't make sense to me, is like, okay, well then, how was he able to get there whenever he's way over there? I'm like, to me, this feels like that's great timing to me, great, that must have no traffic for him to be able to get there, especially in a city. I mean, those are just my minor pet peeves, but I really enjoyed this movie. is it better than Scream? To me, if I had to rank it in the Scream movies, I would probably say it's my third favorite movie or fourth favorite movie. Maybe it's third favorite. I still think Scream 2 and Scream 1 are better, but I really enjoyed this movie. I would definitely own it on 4K and watch it again. Well, I can't wait for it to come out on digital and Blu-ray. If I had to give this movie a grade, I would give it a solid A-. Thank you so much for watching.